Yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy Carson Fox back again with another edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports, and we're doing another fun one. We're talking about college football 25, finally bringing back what previously was the NCAA football series brought to you by EA Sports. The news breaking today on social media that the game will release on Friday, July 19th, and I am pumped. I cannot wait. I've been a huge fan of the now previously known as NCAA football series. Been my favorite video game since I was a little kid. Playing my first copy of 2003 with Matt Leinart on the cover, or was it, no, sorry, with Carson Palmer on the cover. No, Matt Leinart came next. And then pretty much playing it, having so many editions, having 03, having 06, having 07, the one that with Reggie Bush on the cover, the game that I played the most for years and years and years, buying NCAA 12 and playing that probably my second most, and then playing NCAA 14. So it's so sad that there had to be this 10-year hiatus of this video game, and even the fact that EA Sports pushed it back an entire year, mainly due to the conference realignment that's happening with the demolition of the Pac-12 conference and the additions of Oregon, Washington, USCLA, and USC to the Big Ten, Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, everything shaking out with name, image, and likeness. So we're back, baby. College football 25, July 19th. I am so excited, and if you are too, I want to hear from you. So tonight, on tonight's show, I want to talk about WVU's place in the college football 25 game. So we're going to talk about a number of different topics, things that might be already on your mind or you haven't necessarily thought about that might sound interesting to you. But if you're a gamer and specifically in the NCAA football series, so you're familiar with all of the terms I'm talking about, Road to Glory, Dynasty Mode, the things of that nature, like, let's talk about it. I'm going to talk about kind of the things that are my wish list items at the end of tonight's show that are more general about the game, but I want to talk about, will West Virginia be ranked, and if so, where? Offenses and defenses and special teams grades, because whenever you pick a team, it gives you kind of like their overall caliber, overall pedigree, but then it gives you an offensive grade, it gives you a defensive grade, and a special teams grade. So where will West Virginia be ranked in those grades? Is Mountaineer Field going to be a top 25 toughest place to play that NCAA football really coined over the last 20 years as the top 25 toughest places to play? Who will be West Virginia's highest rated players by overall skill level? Who will be West Virginia's star players? And if you've played the game, it's the star that lights up underneath. Two players, I think, at most on your offense, two players at most on your defense, and those players really have what are seemed like special abilities that can just make crazy highlight reel plays. It's not to say that some others can't, but it's just like your star players in the game can do some things that just like are game-breaking type of plays. So who will West Virginia's two star players be offensively and defensively? Let's break down kind of the offensive grade that I give West Virginia, or I'm projecting for West Virginia in the game, breaking down the defense's grade. What will Garrett Greene be rated as a quarterback? And let's talk about him. And maybe most important of all, after it was just released a couple of weeks ago, will the Cole Rush uniforms be available in this game? So that's all I got to unpack for you tonight. Let's start it off. So first question, will West Virginia be ranked, and if so, where? I'm going to say no. But they're very close. Very, very close. I've listened to one podcast last week, Barrett Sallee's Smothered and Covered podcast, where he pegged West Virginia 15th in the country, and also seen earlier this week, RJ Young from Fox College Sports ranked West Virginia 21st. So West Virginia, to the national media, and even local media, there is some hype around this program being a team that could eke their way into the top 25. If you look at the Vegas rankings with their over and under win totals, this and that and the other thing, with a projection of 12.5 point spot already for week one against Penn State, there's not as much buy-in, and I think it's following the kind of same narrative of last year, but I think there's more credence to this year's narrative than there was last year with strength of schedule and West Virginia playing perhaps 5 ranked opponents to start out the year. But still, let's talk, like, I'll break it down kind of when I talk about offense and defensive grades. I think I can play into a narrative. But does West Virginia, if you're going power ranking, strength of roster, taking into consideration the coaching prestige of Neil Brown and their the coaching staff, will West Virginia be ranked? And I say no, and also because I think EA will want to have as much representation as possible across the Power 4 conferences, and they'll have a G5 school in the top 25. Won't necessarily be worth it, but again, you want to have, well, in comparison to like the College Football Playoff Committee and some of the others who only want to talk about the blue bloods and that, EA Sports is going to want to try and create as much hype from Seattle, Washington to Miami, Florida, from Bangor, Maine to Los Angeles, California, San Diego. Everybody in between, with all of these schools involved, they're now paying the players for their name, image, and likeness for use in this game. So I think you're going to see some of that. And when there could perhaps be 5 teams in the Big 12 conference ranked in the top 25 preseason, I think that's that one school that West Virginia is just going to be right there on the fringe. But if they get in, absolutely phenomenal. Love that. But I'm just going to say no to start off. What do you think? Yes or no? Offense and defense grades, I think West Virginia is going to get an A offensive grade. And my biggest question as it pertains to the offense is, what will the Neil Brown playbook in EA Sports look like? I know that the playbooks aren't necessarily carbon copy to what the teams run out on the field, but I think we're going to see more of a hybrid between Dana Holgerson's air raid, what was an air raid type of an offense, and Rich Rod's spread read option type of offense, because West Virginia last year was still an offense that ran it for the majority of the time. So you're going to see some, if it mimics in the video game and what reality is with this West Virginia team, a lot of window dressing, a lot of pre-snap motion and I know you control that as the user, but I think you're going to see some of those kinds of variables to the plays. So I'm very interested to see how West Virginia's playbook is, because I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of it back in 2013 and 2014, but was really cool to run out of a pistol spread type of look, because you couldn't really necessarily do that out of their old offenses. So I give West Virginia's offense an A. I'm going to give a B grade for the defense. And mainly one question is what I'm going to talk about all over the summer is, what will Jordan Leslie's defensive scheme look like exactly? Is it going to be a 3-4 with 4 linebackers look, or will it be a continuation of the 3-3-5 with 5 defensive backs? Is Ty French going to start at jack linebacker, or is Jaheim Joseph going to start at cat safety? That's the big question. I feel like I want to see out of this the way if EA is going based upon what West Virginia did last year and previous years under Jordan Leslie, we're going to see a continuation of 3-3-5, unless there has been some sort of communication with EA Sports that, like, hey, we're switching up our defense this year. So with that being said, I'll kind of break this down more, I think, when I talk about the different grades, just kind of giving you an overview now here. Special teams, I think they're going to get an A. Michael Hayes, awesome kicker, top 25 worthy kicker. He only missed 2 field goals all of last season. Accurate, strong leg. Like, guy is going to be a high caliber kicker in this game. Ollie Strassam, punter. I think he's a top 25 punter in the country. And not only what he can do with his coffin corner kicks and nailing opponents inside their 20, but also strong leg. I think Jaheim White and Rodney Gallagher, if I have to guess, are going to be West Virginia's 2 kick returners. And I'm gonna say right now, sticking with what West Virginia did last year, Preston Fox will be the punt returner. Might be Rodney Gallagher, but I think that Neil Brown, sticking with tradition, what he likes to, stay cohesive, stay the course. So nothing necessarily Preston Fox did last year other than get kamikazed by Andrew Wilson-Lamp. I'm still salty about that play in the Oklahoma State game to lose his position at punt returner. But I think that Rodney Gallagher is really chomping at the bit to get involved there on special teams, and that could be a fit. So then, will Mountaineer Field be a top 25 place to play in the country? I had to go back and look at this because I couldn't remember necessarily off the top of my head if in NCAA 14 West Virginia was ranked as a top 25 toughest place to play, and it was not. But from 2005 to 2013, really the golden era of the Rich Rod into Bill Stewart into Dana Holgerson, beginning of his tenure between Pat White and Steve Slayton all the way through Geno Smith, Tavon Austin, Stedman Bailey. West Virginia was a top 25 place to play in the country, and you could hit the L2 button a whole bunch of times, pump up the crowd, and opposing players' controller will shake. So that was always really cool, especially in like the mid 2000s versions of the game before it got into the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, or Xbox One version, and so on, to very advanced down the road. But early on, when in NCAA football's very primitive version, that was really cool. That West Virginia Mountaineer Field was the toughest place to play. And I'm going to say, West Virginia isn't ever going to challenge the likes of LSU, Oregon, Penn State, Clemson with 20,000 or more fans than what Mountaineer Field currently sits at 60,000. But I think West Virginia could sneak there into the 20s. What I think will hold West Virginia back, and this kind of goes back to my narrative during my fan experience series, if you check that out here on my channel, is unfortunately West Virginia doesn't have really a pre-game walkout type tradition. Like I'm thinking like a Clemson with Howard's Rock, or a Virginia Tech with playing Enter Sandman, or Ohio State dotting the I, Michigan with the banner, Oregon driving out on a motorcycle, Colorado running a buffalo out on the field, or the Oklahoma, the Boomer Schooners. That's unfortunately a traditional piece that has made the later or early 2010s games really cool, to see some of those type of pre-game entrances that I think would then have EA Sports, again, because they want to have inclusivity, they want to spread the wealth. You would put a Virginia Tech, and I know for fans who went to that game in 2022, you're like, no way is Enter Sandman all that intimidating, of what you've experienced. But it's just like EA Sports might put Virginia Tech as a top 25 place to play, but then they'll put West Virginia ranked. They're going to try and throw out, dole out some good vibes to many different programs to get their fan bases to buy in, to talk about on social media and buy this game. So, and also I think what could hold WVU back here are some new players replacing some of the old guard. I had to go back and look at this, and Stanford was the 14th toughest place to play on NCAA 14. What? Boise State, 19th. Even a school, and I know they sit a vast number, Auburn, 24th. So could a program like a Colorado, who witnessed the fourth highest increase in fan attendance in 2023, I had to look that up, could Colorado, again, to appease that fan base, with Dion, Travis Hunter obviously being on the cover, to get them to want to buy this game and see what that experience is like. Or another program who, has had its ups and downs, last year being a good year, even though I called them frauds. Louisville. Louisville had the sixth highest increase in fan attendance at 23% in 2023. So are EA looking at those numbers of okay, so what programs are kind of on the downfall? In my opinion, Stanford, and Auburn's taken a bit of a dip. And then who's on the rise is and what do you mean by rise? Fan attendance, media attention, Colorado, in this case Louisville, and have them as a top 25 place to play. So it'll be very interesting. I think West Virginia, both in its national top 25 ranking and Mountaineer Field being a top 25 toughest place to play, are right on the cusp there of the top 25. So maybe the most important segment of this entire video: who will West Virginia's highest rated players play? And I think this is pretty obvious. Number one is going to be their left tackle, Wyatt Milam. I would not be surprised if he is somewhere in the mid 90s, 96, 97, one of the highest rated tackles in the game. Neil Brown's already called him a projected first round pick in next year's NFL draft. Similarly, in the same vein is Zach Frazier, who just went in the second round of the NFL draft. So I would put Wyatt Milam right up there as one of the best tackles in the country, West Virginia's number one overall player. Number two, I'm going to say Aubrey Burks. I think Aubrey Burks is going to come in somewhere between about a 93, 94. Obviously, his Pro Football Focus stats going into last year, his junior year, had him rated as one of the top safeties in the country. Maybe a down year by Aubrey Burks' standards, but still, right up there among, if not maybe behind Beanie Bishop last year as the best defensive player West Virginia had. So with that being said, I have him as West Virginia's highest rated defensive player, second behind Wyatt Milam. Third, I think, is going to be Garrett Greene. I think is going to be somewhere in the ballpark of a 91 or a 92 overall grade. I'll break him down a little bit more. Cole Taylor, I have at number 4. I think he'll be right around a 90, 91. Obviously, team leader in receptions this past year, integral part of the West Virginia offense, finally getting a tight end involved in this Neil Brown system. Big red zone threat as well, but made some awesome plays, hurdling guys. Cole Taylor is probably going to be the number one receiving threat for West Virginia in its passing offense in the game. So then number 5, I think, is as a toss-up really, and I'm very curious to see how EA Sports rates C.J. Donaldson versus Jaheim White, because I think that EA Sports is going to look at the yards per carry average and look at some of the speed on the highlights and be tantalized by Jaheim White. And it's going to be so fun to play with Jaheim White alongside Garrett Greene. As much fun as it is to watch them on the field, to play with them both, it's going to be, very similar feel, I feel like, to a Noel Devine standing next to Pat White in this game. Because his speed, especially hitting the outside, is fantastic. Definitely has C.J. Donaldson beat there in a foot race. I think C.J. Donaldson isn't lacking for speed. No, I would never say that. But doesn't have the type of agility that I think the agility rating definitely is going to be Jaheim White's advantage, and also the speed overall rating. I just think the power, the acceleration, the size, the stiff arm, all that makes a power back, C.J. Donaldson's going to have if he is rated correctly. So I think what will hold C.J. Donaldson back is not having that same kind of speed as Jaheim White. Jaheim White's case, it's going to be that 5'9", 185. And really, is he 5'9"? I mean, the all-purpose back. So I think they'll be rated right around the same overall rating, but it'll be just two completely different backs. So it'll be fun to see how those both guys come out. Am I high? Am I low on some guys? I think some honorable mentions, I would say they're outside the top 5. Sean Martin, as I said, Ollie Straw and Michael Hayes are both going to be highly rated kickers and punters. I would go Tomas Remak on the offensive line right next to Wyatt Milam. Might be right there around like an 89. And then Jaden Bray, I think, will be the highest overall rated wide receiver of the group. And looking at West Virginia's defense, which I'll talk about here in a second, how they're rated across the board, I think he'll just be high enough, maybe in that mid 60s, maybe on the higher side of the mid 60s, maybe an 86, 85, 86, 87, he could be right in there as well. So who will West Virginia's star players be? And again, so these are the guys who are going to have that kind of game breaker skill and ability. Offense, Garrett Greene, no doubt. And I think it's going to be C.J. Donaldson or Jaheim White, whoever EA Sports decides to give the edge to in a ratings war, ratings battle between the two guys. I can't give it to one of these receivers. I can't give it to Cole Taylor as much as, I get it. I think he'll be higher rated. But you just don't see tight ends very often. You more so see one wide receiver, the quarterback, and or running back. So who out of those skilled players? And then defensively, I think 2 stars at 2 separate levels on the defense. Highest rated defensive player being Aubrey Burks, and then the second being Sean Martin. I don't think there's a linebacker necessarily on this core who would deserving of that star rating. Anthony Wilson, though, had great tackle numbers. You're not going to have 2 safeties next to each other. I don't think any of the new corners are going to be West Virginia's other stars, so I see Sean Martin being that guy. And if it's gotten any sort of wind from the WVU coaching staff or administration, I think that's probably who they would push for as well to get that kind of rating, if there was any input from the team. So breaking down the offensive grade, again, I'm giving them an A. I think that the quarterbacks, both Nico Marchiol and Garrett Greene, like if you interchange Nico Marchiol for Garrett Greene, yeah, you're not going to have the same kind of rushing ability, but I don't think necessarily the numbers and the passing statistics are going to drop off so dramatically that we're talking about Nico Marchiol isn't a player rated in the 80s. I think he'll be an 80s rated player, while Greene is still rated at like a 91, 92. Who West Virginia has as its third quarterback, if it's Khalil Wilkins. Before, West Virginia just added Ryder Burton from BYU. Very yet to be seen, but Wilkins, I think, might be like in the high 60s or low 70s, maybe at the nicest, of what his rating will be. But again, running backs going to be 1A and 1B between Donaldson and Jaheim White. And I think actually you might get Jalen Anderson somewhere in like the high 70s as a third running back. And then Cole Taylor, like I said, is going to be West Virginia's probably best passing option in the passing or receiving option in the passing game. And then the left side of the line having Wyatt Milam and Tomas Remak next to each other. So you're going to be running a lot of read options to the left, I feel like, if you're playing with West Virginia's offense. But then who knows? We'll see how right tackle between Xavier Bosley and Nick Malone shakes out. Who's 1A and 1B on the depth chart. I still think it's going to be Malone and then Bosley, and then that's going to be something that's fought out in fall camp with Yates at center, Jaquay Hubbard at right guard. I'm very curious to see the abilities and the ratings of these wide receivers, because I could see myself perhaps being 4 to 5 points off on all of them. Like I said, Jaden Bray could probably be like an 86, 87. Hudson Clement, I could see 85, 86. Traylon Ray right behind him, 84, 85. Preston Fox right behind him, 83, 84. And Rodney Gallagher like an 82, 83. All these guys, I won't take the time out of this to break it down, their different strengths, and then things that they can necessarily improve upon, but all young. Clement, a third-year guy, redshirt sophomore. Ray, Gallagher are true sophomores. Fox, obviously, being the veteran of the squad, being a fifth-year senior. And I think he'll be a savvy. That's why I can't say oh man, Fox isn't necessarily going to be ranked into the 80s. I mean, how many tough catches did he make this past season? What's going to hurt him and also going to hurt Gallagher is their size in this game. So that's why I could see Bray, Clement, and Ray kind of being in the top 3, and that's actually how I think it's going to work out for the season. And then just different sub packages, you can move your depth chart around to play a Gallagher over a Fox, but that's just the way I could see him. But again, I could be 4 to 5 points off, I feel like, on all of their ratings. It could be lower. I can't see Bray getting rated into the 90s. That doesn't make sense. But could he be higher up in this 8, skew up 4 points or skew down 4 points? Yet to be seen. Breaking down the defensive grade, I do think that both Burks and Martin are your two studs, your two stars, and then you're going to have a lot of guys who are in the low to mid 80s, high 70s, and this or high 70s being like your second string starter. So like perfect prime example, Trey Lathan and Ben Cutter at will linebacker. Like I think you're going to have Trey Lathan maybe somewhere in the ballpark of like an 82, but Ben Cutter's right on his tail at like an 80 or 79. Because both showed flashes at different points in the season, Lathan being injured. Reed Carrico and Jeremiah Trotter, same difference. 1A and 1B. Tyron Bradley, Ty French, if we're sticking with this 3-3-5, you get where I'm going with this. There's not a lot of drop off between 1A and 1B or 1 and 2, but we don't have the kind of, West Virginia does not have the kind of caliber of defense of an Ohio State that's going to be, a top 3 team, or an Oregon. Like there aren't enough stars. There's going to be a good enough core, a whole functioning defense that focus as one. But if you try and pick out individual stars, I think you got Burks, at least on paper, to start out this season. That's what I think is going to have to emerge, and we're going to have to see, like we see this all the time, of guys who come into the season unproven, unknown. We don't know how good their abilities are, didn't get that much playing time. But like a guy like Tyron Bradley, who I think could be, a senior captain for this program. The way that he engages with Garrett Greene on some of the social media videos you see out there, they're always jawing at each other. So maybe Tyron Bradley becomes the leader of this defense, vaunted, bandit that West Virginia has needed since Vandarius Cowan didn't work out in this defense. But a guy like Fatorma Moba, who I talked about all of his, statistics and the limited numbers of snaps that he got, who played, I feel like, above what his snap count really warranted, but he had Mike Lockhart in front of him. Again, I already mentioned Bradley. Josiah Trotter. If you watch the spring game, the guy was just making play after play after play, and who I think, like, gun to my head right now, if I have to say who's a game one starter against Penn State at that middle linebacker position, I think it's Trotter. Already talked about Lathan, Anthony Wilson. Like, we know how, he came up from the G5 level at Georgia State. Came in last year, down goes an injury in the Penn State game, and he starts the whole rest of the way out, third leading tackler on the team? A guy who might be pushing 5'9", 190 pounds, but he's a warrior, and like a second-year guys who have been in the system already, comfortable, know what they have to do in their roles, functioning as one whole unit. How many snaps together now over the last 2 seasons, now 3, has Eddie Vesterinen and Sean Martin had next to each other? A lot. So they know their tendencies. They know what they're going to do. They know what they need to do in their roles. Linebackers, again, got a lot of experience between Lathan and Cutter. Bradley coming in at the end of the season, making a big play in that Mayo Bowl. So that's what I mean. I think if we see this 3-3-5 play out, and it's Jaheim Joseph at cat safety, we don't know anything really about him. We don't know what Garnet Hollis Jr. is going to provide at corner. So then Jacoby Spells, I'm feeling because of the additions of Dantes Fagan just recently, as well as the corner from Jacksonville State who was brought in as a transfer. I don't think we're going to see Jacoby Spells this upcoming season. That's just my thoughts, kind of reading between the lines. Due to injury and not playing in the spring. I think it's more serious than what we're being led to be on, but I would think he would be the game's second cornerback behind Hollis. So that's what I mean to say about this defense, is this defense will be a B grade, but is there the potential to be an A defense? Absolutely. I think there's some guys who can break out. But right now, I don't see any types of guys who really strike fear into opposing offenses, like a Darius Stills, like a Carl Joseph, like a David Long, Bruce Irvin, or even last year, I would love if Beanie Bishop had one more year of eligibility. I think he would maybe be right up there with Wyatt Milam as West Virginia's top player, the way that he performed last year, and be their star, player on defense. But, 6-year guy, he's got to graduate someday. So let's talk about, now we're about 30 minutes in, Garrett Greene. I say a 91, 92. I think his Pro Football Focus stats alone on his deep ball statistics, being one of the best deep passers in the country, tells me that his throw power is going to be very high, but it's his throw accuracy that's just trailing. And I think that mimics the player that Garrett Greene is. And he came along definitely in the back half of the season, specifically, I would say, after that Oklahoma game as well, getting his feet set, especially when he has to throw from outside the pocket, put his body into the throw, put some touch into it, take a little bit off his fastball to place it in exactly where he needs to do, not get rattled, not get rushed, not get too tense, and just fire the ball like a Aroldis Chapman fastball. So I don't know necessarily on what his throw power will be. I would have to imagine it's going to be somewhere in the mid-90s. And then, his accuracy might be closer to 90. So he's going to be a very fun player to play with because of his speed. I would think he'll probably be top 3 rushing quarterbacks when it comes to speed in the country in this game. He's the fastest quarterback West Virginia's had since Pat White. His acceleration should be up there too. With his agility, he's just undersized. That's the only thing about him being, his injury being probably higher, lower than what WVU fans would like. So if you are running him, trying to learn how to use that flat slide button, so he doesn't fumble. Didn't have that issue last year with fumbling the ball, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be necessarily shocked if EA Sports puts his injury rating less so than what fans are looking for. I think he's going to be one of the players that fans across the entire country like playing with the most. When I look at Big 12 quarterbacks, I'm thinking it's going to be a guy like Greene, Shedeur Sanders, obviously going to be one of the top-rated quarterbacks in the entire country, Jalen Daniels at Kansas, and then Avery Johnson at Kansas State. Fans are going to like playing with those guys because everybody likes to run. Everybody likes to act like Patrick Mahomes, play outside the pocket and try and run in a spread read option. So that's 4 quarterbacks. I think Greene's going to be a lot of fun to play with as well. So will the Coal Rush uniforms be available? That's the question everybody's asking themselves. If you know any intel about this, whether I need to necessarily purchase a deluxe edition pack, which I know is going to cost somewhere like $100, in comparison to what I think 60 or 70 is the regular retail price, please let me know, because I want to play with West Virginia in those Coal Rush uniforms. I don't want to have to pay extra $30 for it though. I hope that in previous versions of NCAA, I think it was 12, you could play as West Virginia in the Nike Pro Combat jerseys that were at the Backyard Brawl in 2010? Yeah. So I think in 2011. So you could play in those jerseys, and that was great. So use the traditional blues, whites, the gold jerseys, and then the 4th jersey option, the whole full set of the Coal Rush. So that will be awesome. I would freaking love that. So if you know any intel as regards to those Coal Rush uniforms being involved in this game, please let me know, because I'm very interested. So my wish list items, I got 5. One of them I kind of break into a couple of parts. So what are my wish list items for college football 25? First and foremost, and I know if you're a college football, a gamer, and you love NCAA and Madden's just okay, is I hope that college football has the same game engine. not Madden's game engine. I hope that it's very similar to an NCAA 2014. If it's a hybrid between 2012 and 2014, that would be optimal, because you go back to like the late 2000s games. 2007, a game I've played hours and hours and hours of. You could rush as the defensive end and crush the left tackle every single time the ball was snapped. You get to 12, and the evolution of the spread read option is coming about in the game, and you could just lateral, your way to rushing all over opponents for hundreds and hundreds of yards per game with offenses that had no business kind of running like the veer, and you could just run. Everybody wanted to be like, Dennis Dixon, Oregon out there, or, Pat White, Steve Slayton. So that really came about in like the early 2010s games. By 14, you could just pass all over people. I mean, you had to run perfect. If you're playing on Dynasty mode especially, different degree of difficulty, you could just pass all over the people. But also defensive backs make absolutely crazy plays if you're playing the computer. Just like physically impossible. So I'm very curious to see how the AI, the game engine, plays in this game. Are you going to be able to easily run all over people? Are you able to easily pass all over people? Do the defenses dominate? I don't think necessarily that will happen, but let's see what it's like, especially because this is like the first game for the Xbox One, the PlayStation 5. Like, the graphics are going to be incredible. Already seeing some of the pictures about it. What does the gameplay feature? I would love if there was a classic teams. And for West Virginia's case, excuse me, if you could play with West Virginia's team from 1988 with Major Harris at the quarterback, Don Nealon at the helm as the head coach, 93, West Virginia's undefeated regular season, 2007, obviously, with Pat White and Steve Slayton and Noel Devine, Owen Schmidt, 2011 with Geno Smith, Tavon Austin, Simon Bailey, and even 2018, a team we were robbed of getting in the video game with Will Greer at quarterback, David Sills, Gary Jennings, Trevon Wesco, David Long defensively. Like, that would be awesome. If you could play with those 5 teams, that's what would be worth paying like the upgraded deluxe version of, to play with some of those Mountaineer legendary teams. Going back any further than that, I mean, I don't know. I don't know those teams all that well, not getting to see too many highlights of those teams from that day. Here's one I got to break down kind of in 3 different parts. I want to see expansive use of name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal in Dynasty mode and Road to Glory. For Road to Glory, I want to have like a 2K like Road to Glory with a big man on campus type of story campaign. I want you to like be able to create your own player, starts out at the high school level, who gets recruited by college coaches, pick your school. Once you get to your school, you have a roommate, you have to go to weightlifting, meet with your nutritionist, you gotta, go to class, you gotta obviously practice, play the games, all that. But, then you have outside influences, the collectives, and wanting people trying to contact you to enter the transfer portal. Do you have a girlfriend, and like the influence that has on you of, wanting to stay, wanting to go to the NFL, that type of thing. So like, I want to see something fun like that. That would be awesome. In Road to Glory. And then for Dynasty mode, having conference realignment. I think I enjoyed nothing less than creating the different type of geography-based conferences like we should have in college football. So to be able to do that in Dynasty mode, and again, be able to use the transfer portal and NIL as part of that, I'm very curious to see. I think that's where College Football 25 is going to either make or break itself, is what is done with Dynasty mode. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments. And then lastly, I love doing the Create a Team online builder, where you were able to make your own team name, create your own stadium, have your own custom uniforms, be able to build the roster, like all that If you haven't done that before, that was tremendous. That was part of the 14. Being someone who loves the state of Arizona, creating a team, Sedona University, in which my stadium was smack dab in the middle of the desert. It was only seating like 25,000 fans, but heck, it was smack dab in the desert. I could create all my players, made like awesome, black, red, and yellow jerseys. So it was awesome. Still have that as part of my NCAA 14 game. Haven't played it in a while, but I want to be able to bring that back. I want to be able to create one of my best friends, who I started out in my 2007 NCAA football dynasty with UL Lafayette, the Ragin' Cajuns, built them up over 20 years, playing every single game. I think I left them to go to Oregon and trying to, and then that's where I then got into 12, then got into 2014 and so on. But I played a lot. I played so much NCAA 2007, it was till my PlayStation 2 broke. So that's what's awesome. I want to have my same, friend as my head coach. Want to have my Sedona team that I create. What are you most looking forward to? What are your wish list items? If you had 5 things, what would they be? Leave them here in the comments. What do you think about my thoughts about this West Virginia team as part of this game? How much are you looking forward to playing with this team, seeing actual players' names, images, not just, quarterback number 5, from Daphne, Alabama? No, like, is there actually Garrett Greene? Number 6 has his picture, looks like him. That's going to be so cool. I'm excited. I hope you are too. July 19th can't come soon enough to be able to get this game, and I want to hear your thoughts on ratings. If you see this team being ranked, what did you think of my analysis of the grades, offense, defense, special teams, so on and so forth? Leave your comments here on YouTube, and of course, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it. So like this video, so more Mountaineer fans can see it across YouTube. And if you like this, check out some of my other videos here on my channel and hit that subscribe button. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Let's go.